Welcome to another edition of Bowie TV Sports Spotlight. During this hour, we're bringing you highlights from our shows focused on all things sports in the DMV. Please be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms. First up on Pitt Sports Zone. Hear from Bowie State softball head coach Ed Powell about his team's expectations for this upcoming season. Then catch the sights and sounds and highlights from Ohio State's 2026 Pro Day ahead of the NFL Draft. On Baltimore Ravens Update, hear from team president Sashi Brown at the 2026 owners meeting. Lastly, on Washington Commanders Update, hear from Commanders head coach Dan Quinn at the 2026 owners meeting. Don't go anywhere, and as always, enjoy this week's episode of Bowie TV Sports Spotlight. What's going on, everybody? You know what it is. I'm your host, Pitt Sports Zone, Bowie TV, coming to you live yet again. You know what it is. It's the Pitts and Powell Show. And before we start, definitely got to get you to hydrate yourself with some good old smart water. Like Bobby said, H2O, my said, foosballs for the devil. What's going on,
Yeah,
Coach?
nothing much, Terrence, man. And thanks for the introduction. Yeah, got to get some water in you, man. Got to have a good old H2O.
Man, Coach, how you been, man? Since the last time that we got together, we got together right before the uh the HBCU Invitational took off, and um, you know, definitely competed, had some rough moments, but like to go ahead and delve into it and share your thoughts in regards from the HBCU Invitational, and then we'll get into the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. Well, I think, thanks, man. I appreciate it. So I think, and you can attest to this. I think the going to the HBCU um, Invitational was a really good, great experience for the players and for everybody involved. I think it was really high energy, high intensity softball, which I thought was really good. And I thought we competed well. I think after we got our legs up under us, being the first time outside, being the first time us actually playing, on a field and that kind of stuff. I think the FAMU game got away from us a little bit. We competed early, but at the end, it kind of got away from us a little bit. But I think every game after that, I think we really performed. We got better every game after that. Every
Yeah.
inning, we got a little bit better. So I think the experience was really well. But I also believe that us playing, it really helped us propel kind of where we are, where we headed. So I think it was all around. It was all around a good trip, good experience.
And it's never an excuse. However, I think we'd be remiss to really highlight that one point, or I do, because you guys had not had an outside practice until that Thursday before we arrived,
Hmm.
right? And your first time playing, one practicing together, and then just going into competition, and even coming back home, it has still been, the weather has been very disturbing to the schedule, to the practicing outside, to the, et cetera. You know, given all of that, how have you seen your team progress, even with the limited amount of time to really build that continuity that is built during practices?
Man, I think that we got to take every little advantage of the opportunities that we do have, and we make no excuses. Yeah, we got to practice in the gym, but that gives us a opportunity to work on the small things. You know what I mean? And so we can't make any excuses because the thing is that the teams that we're playing, they don't care. They don't care whether we've been
Absolutely.
outside. They don't care whether we practice, in a cubby hole. They don't. That's not their
Yeah.
concern. You know what I mean? Their concern is to try to beat the brakes off us. You know what I mean? So we have to prepare. Whatever situation we find ourselves in, we gotta get better. You know what I mean? And so that's what we've been trying to do, man. We didn't. We know there's an excuse out there we can use, but we choose not to use it.
No, absolutely. And when you talk about every game competing, it wasn't like, there were blowouts, albeit, I think one game, but that was, due to, one, that was the first game. There
Mm.
was some just routine plays that the team normally makes.
Yeah,
And again, a catalyst of not being able to really be in the element. Um, while in the gym, it's taking pop balls, pop ups, that's going, 20, 30 feet in the air and coming down is different, in
yeah,
the gym than it is being outside in elements. But again, every single game, the team has competed.
yeah,
They even in the midst of when the game isn't going their way, they're still high spirit.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a staple of kind of who we are and how we want to be. You know what I mean? I want you to look up in the scoreboard and not
Yeah,
sometimes not know who's in the lead and who's behind just by what's going on, on the field and in our dugout. You know what I mean? We want to always feel like we're in the game or we're competing, and we just keep our heads down, keep fighting, and we'll look up in the end. We'll see where we are, but we'll count them up. But I think that's just a signature that we want to have. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
I think we're getting there. We're getting there.
And even go, let's go. I think within the last 9 games, you guys were 3-6. Last week, you guys won three on the road. Talk about the development that you just seen in regards to it because you shifted your infield around a lot. And the outfield kind of really has been consistent
Hmm.
with adding, I believe, India,
Hmm.
uh, is India to right field, I believe.
Yeah, and India's in the rotation. Yeah, and
Right,
India's in
India,
the rotation.
Ireland, right,
And
India,
Mark,
Ireland, Margot,
yep,
Karina.
yep,
Um, you know,
Presley. Yeah,
it's. I mean, you have depth.
yeah.
When it comes to the outfield, what are some things that you would like to see differently or more of from your outfielders?
And I think my outfielders are really doing a really great job. They're communicating. They're maximum effort players. And so we just got to keep continue improving. You know what I mean? In every sense of the word, as a team, as a unit. They kind of know what they individually need to work on. And so they make that their task. They're one of the that their accountability. They make strong accountability when they don't make the play or make the
Mhm.
exact play that they think they should have, or the right throw. It doesn't land exactly where they wanted to land. They make self accountability. They are definitely a group that makes themselves accountable for the things that they're responsible for. So that's
Absolutely,
I'm not saying anything they need to prove on. They already, they're making improvements every
every
day.
single day.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we talked about, is that the team, like as you just said, and we talked about it, even when we were in Atlanta, right? In
Hmm.
Atlanta, it was more of knocking the rust off. Again,
Hmm.
it's not an excuse because at the end of the day, like you said, the opponents don't care about the advantages or disadvantages. Everybody has them, and everybody has to deal with them in their own standard of ways. But when you look at from Atlanta and you can see, them knocking their dust off, getting their gears in place, when you talk about, routine plays that they always make, and then coming from Atlanta and then lining up, here at the Washington National Youth Academy field and watching how the plays from Atlanta aren't they're not making those mistakes aren't there, and it's
Hmm.
more so now lining up the defense with the offense.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, man. So I think we like I said it earlier, probably said it earlier in our conversation, that we don't lose, we learn. And so
Mhm.
we've taken all of that information and kind of learn from it and then start to improve on it. You know what I mean? And so I think last weekend was a clear and evident kind of clear and evident way that you can see how we were improving. So those games that we were losing close, now we trying to turn the tide on them, and with some decent teams, that we're coming out on top on some of those games where
Yeah.
before we were ending up, one run loss. Now we're at the one run win, and I think all of those games prior to helped us get to the outcome that we were looking for this weekend. I mean, the past weekend.
Right. When we look at, I think the CIAA roundup is coming up around the corner, not too far from us. And when you look at your pitching, your bullpen, loving, Sid, Draco, Licia, and your freshman Lee,
Yeah.
talk about the things that you are seeing from those young ladies.
I mean, they're growing as a unit. They're growing. They are really starting to blossom in their own way. And what I talk about is that everybody has a responsibility, and they go and they take they take their responsibility seriously, and they go out and they work hard, and then they go out and take command of the circle. They are, in essence, when the game is going on, everybody is kind of um, cheering them on, like, hey, because they are actually on the leaders, because they touch the ball every play. The catcher only touches it one more time than they do, but other than that, they touch the ball every single play. So they have a lot to do with how we show up. You know what I mean? And I think they've taken on the challenge. All four of
Yeah.
them really have taken on the challenge, and they show up well. I'm excited, you know, for them to continue, to see how we end up, with the ball in their hands.
And coach, you have an issue I think a lot of coaches would love to have. You have a lot of power, but unfortunately, all the power can't be on the field at the same time.
Mm,
When you talk about the strength of your backs,
mm.
how do you manage and figure out? I know probably based off who you're playing, but when you have that much power on your bench, how do you balance it out?
We just had this conversation the other day, and I was like, in every game, people's opportunity is going to look different. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Every opportunity is not going to look the same as it did last game, or as it did last week. But you have to be prepared for your opportunity when it comes, because this week we may be asking you to do, to be a power hitter. Next week we may be asked to put you in the game when it's time for, it looks like a power hitter, but we want you to bunt the ball. You know what I mean? To move the runner around. You know what I mean? So it always, so we try to make sure that everybody plays offense. Everybody has a role on offense. So we kind of make sure that they're prepared for whatever role they're going to play in that game. So that's really, and we look to call on all of those people that we believe in, and that's all 25 players, 24
Absolutely.
players that we look to call on them at and offensively and defensively, but we're talking offensively at the moment that the opportunity arrives, we call on them and we expect execution.
Yeah.
So
And coach said it, and his talent isms. So we're gonna call them the power isms. And coach said, we don't lose, we learn.
mm.
And a couple weeks back, one of my favorite ones, we respect everybody, but we ain't scared of nobody.
Oh, that's
You
that's
know.
that's that's still true. That's that man. That is that is still true, man. We've been playing some
Yeah.
really good teams, man, and we're playing from the Mountain East to the PSAC, and we again, we respect everybody, but you know we just not scared of anybody.
Yeah, and I'm glad and I was going to actually pivot to that. When you talk about the schedule, and I kind of made that, I kind of wrote that up in the post that I did earlier today, and that was, you guys have not been playing, chicken pot teams. You guys have been playing some really good teams and, some upper echelon teams. So when you look at that and you look at the opponents and you look at how your team has battled, each and every game, as I said, the margin of defeat isn't far, and it's really taking a toll and tuning in what this team's makeup look like. How has that been for you on the early onset of the season? Just watching and seeing, okay, you know, maybe we need to adjust here a little bit. I need to spend a little bit more time here. How has that been for you, just from an onlooker?
Oh man, it's honestly it's been a kind of a self-aware kind of thing, kind of looking at inward to myself to figure out like what is it that, I need to do to help us get to a better place. You know what I mean? Even though our schedule was, there's no really like cupcakes on our schedule. So just looking at that, and sometimes questioning, why did I do it that way? But then I go back to my team and was like, because I believe in my players, and I strongly believe in their ability and their will and their fight and all of those things. I truly believe. So that's why I made the schedule the way it is. You know what I mean? And so I really had to, circle the wagons with our coaching staff, kind of looking into kind of how we have to contribute to get through this tough schedule. I mean, I've talked to a couple of D1 coaches and they looked at our schedule and was like, wow, you do have a really tough schedule. So um, we don't rest on that, we just playing a tough schedule and it is what it is. We have to rise to the occasion, which I think,
Yeah,
last week is a good indication of where we could be headed. You know what I mean? And so I think,
yeah,
and we put a little bit more time and intention on, where we come from and then kind of where we want to go with the effort and the focus. And like I said, the accountability part has really been huge for us. That's kind of one of the kind of stick words that we kind of stuck on, is being accountable, to yourself and to your teammates and to the larger university, to your family. You know what I mean? So we kind of
yeah.
taking that on, just to be accountable. You know, so.
And when you talk about, you sharing the conversation you had with another coach, and one of the things that I look at it too is, the adversity, right? Because when you're playing against opponents as such as the opponents that you're playing against, the one thing that I have seen time and time again, year in year out, is that there's a no blink mentality, regardless of who the team is lined up against. There's an expectation that we should win. As never a coward to the opponent, regardless of the division or the conference that they're in. And we always say adversity builds character. And I think for your team, and like I said before, every year you've had a different characteristic of your team because every year you've had a different roster.
Mhm.
And then when you're looking at this year, you have so much talent on your team, even from I'm talking from your freshmen all the way to your seniors and Karina and Ryan. But you have plethora of talent that I feel that the season for me, in my opinion, is still early, especially because you haven't played any CIAA games yet.
Mhm.
Um, but with the CIAA roundup coming around the corner, I think it'll definitely be a testament to the opponents that you guys have already played. Then
Mhm.
going into the CIAA, and I'm not saying that as a knock to all of the CIAA teams. I'm just saying it from a perspective of when you look at the competition and what it's supposed to be.
Right.
As far as your new head coach, Jesse Minter,
Yeah.
what was kind of for you the moment in that process that you kind of thought, he could be the next Ravens head coach?
I don't know if there was any one point that it jumped out at me. It was just kind of strong from the start and stayed strong throughout. Our first impression was fantastic. Those guys had been here with Jess before, so talked a little about them. Got a chance to, do a little diligence talking to Oz and some of the guys in the building who had been with him. But then when I got a chance to be him on that first Zoom, he's just very impressive. Clear thinker. Heard from a lot of people, as I said at the press conference, around the league unprompted, like, hey, this is a real guy that you guys ought to look at. And Jess was impressive throughout the process in terms of the way that he approaches it, alignment in terms of the way we want to go about things, and the way we want to win and build our organization and roster and team, play football. So just very consistently positive throughout the entire process.
How important was that? You mentioned the alignment. You move on from a long-time head coach, but there's some thread there that connected. He's been in the organization before. It's not like you guys just rip things up and went in a different direction.
Yeah, we try to be incredibly thoughtful first and respectful of John, and we challenged ourselves on that decision, as you know, which was not an easy decision, as Steve shared. I think when we sat and talked with Jess, finding someone, first of all, really going into the process, I think understanding what we were looking for and what we needed and why, pushing on that quite a bit. We had a lot of good discussion internally, Ozzy, Eric, myself, Dick, Steve. So when we got to the point where we were having conversations with all candidates, including Jesse, we had a really good sense of what we were looking for. And that alignment, I think, is really important. So you can get into the interview phase, and there's a ton of just talented people out here that are vying for these jobs. But it's really important to know yourself and what you think will be important for your success long term. And Jess represented and embodied a lot of that.
Across the league, 10 new head coaches, only one was minority hire. Just going through the process yourself now, what do you think the league can do to move in the right direction?
I think, we're going to consistently take a look at the process, take a look at the pipeline, take a look at ourselves in terms of where we are. We had some incredible folks. Surprised, but we'll also say we were really familiar with Jess, but also surprised that Vance didn't get a look, and I think he will eventually. He's going to have that defense running again. But ultimately we need more talented folks in the pipeline. We need to make sure the pipeline's identifying those folks, and that's going to be something that's going to be a point of emphasis for the league as we move forward. So we want our fan bases, our front offices, our coaching staffs to reflect our locker rooms, our communities, and that's something that I said at my first press conference. We're behind on, and we need to get better at.
What were some of those non-negotiables for the head coach? What were they? The head coach must be.
Yeah, I think the first thing is always start with character for us. We want someone who's got character as a human being, but also football character, someone who's passionate about the sport, has a lot of respect for our community, is going to represent us well throughout the state, Baltimore. And so that was really important to us. That's really kind of the first non-negotiable for us. We're going to bring in someone who's going to be a great teammate, great leader for our organization. Jess is going to be the face of our franchise, we hope, for a very long time. So beyond the talent, which is also the other piece, someone who's really a teacher and a great leader and organizer of our football program, that's the other piece. Someone who's going to really embody what we're looking for in style of play, intensity, the ability to be creative and innovative as well. So we stay at the forefront of concepts and tactics and scheme. But someone who's going to be a great partner to Eric as well. That partnership is incredibly important.
Sashi, excuse me, I apologize. You guys have taken a lot of hits in the court of public opinion on the Max Crosby deal.
I have not noticed.
Are you concerned that could impact the organization's reputation? And I don't believe we're going to talk to Steve here. How frustrated is he that the organization's sort of integrity is getting challenged?
Yeah, I think it's a slow news cycle. I don't want to at all downplay the experience that Max had coming, that we all had. The Raiders, Ravens, Max, our locker room. As Eric said, we were incredibly excited and just as equally, if not more, disappointed that we weren't able to pull off that transaction and bring Max to Baltimore. I'm not going to go too much deeper into that. To answer your specific question, we've got strong and long relationships across the league. We have emphasized the importance of doing things the right way. We'll continue to do that. And we understand that it is a headline story because of its profile and significance. We believe, our relationships, to the extent that you need time to repair them, people understand who we are and what we're about. Our locker room understands that as well. But when you have high-profile transactions like this and opportunities like this, it's unfortunate, but sometimes these things do happen. No fault of Max's, certainly, or ours, or the Raiders. It's just kind of where it played out.
Because of how it played out, are there changes in the trade process, the new league year process, where you can agree to trades and they can't be announced that you would like to see, or is that you don't think there's anything that this should spur?
I think this is how it should be handled. I mean, I really do, Jeff. We're not aiming for that result, but when you have a high-stakes transaction like that, everybody needs to understand kind of what conditions you're moving forward on. And, I won't say much more than that, but we understand we're disappointed it didn't go through, but we move on to the next opportunity.
Do you feel like there was anything in that process where, as you heard, as you said about the criticism, that you feel has been maybe misconstrued or mischaracterized?
Yeah, but we wouldn't get into that publicly, honestly. We understand the need to report on, these high-profile cases, and certainly. But as I said, we're going to trust ourselves and have a ton of respect for Max and treat all this with the right privacy and respect and dignity that it deserves.
To follow up on Jeff's question, have there been any conversations, regardless of whether you think personally that anything should change about how that process works with the 2-day negotiating period and the start of the league year? Do you think the league is interested? Have they spoken to you at all about it? Just to see if they think anything should change? Other clubs? Have you had any of those kind of conversations? Just about the process, not necessarily about what happened.
Listen, I think there's steps that teams take consistently. I think we just saw another team go through a very similar circumstance. This is not the first time it's going to happen. It will not be the last. I think everybody wants to be prudent throughout processes, and it's unfortunate and rare, especially in a high-profile case like this. But that's why the processes are in place.
Any news about international games for Ravens?
Not yet. Not yet. We have two opportunities. The Falcons, who are on our list of scheduled opponents, and the Cowboys are the two opportunities, but we have not been told. They have not selected, other than I think the Australia game, they have not selected opponents.
Sashi, I think I'm contractually obligated every year to ask about uniform changes.
The annual inquiry.
Yes.
We, as I've told you before, we'll always update you when the time is right on the uniforms. So, and you guys know we're going to be last in line for the rivalry uniforms, which I think we would start designing those in maybe a year. So.
There was a tweet the other day that spurred some speculation further on the uniforms.
Just one. There's always a tweet, It's always a tweet. Yeah.
But the core helmets and that would not change as far as your.
In the hypothetical situation,
you
guys are good. You guys are good.
Way to bring it back around.
That's good.
Yeah, the process for designing uniforms is a lengthy one. So you've got to go. I think for rivalry, we'll start like a year and a half in advance, try to get through that process. So we'll let you guys know when something's moving.
Sashi, I believe you're moving into the third phase of renovations right
Yeah.
now. But in general, you guys are kind of at the back end of when teams usually stay in their stadium. Have you guys started thinking about like long-term plans for M&T Bank Stadium?
So I think the renovations are a big part of that. Third phase, over $400 million invested, significant of those dollars from us, but thankful for the state. We're really excited to bring the entire project into fruition starting this summer. And this last phase may be the most significant and transformational because the plaza really stands up and starts to take form. So we are, as you know through Steve, just really committed to learn from the lessons of the past in Baltimore Memorial Stadium and others to make sure we're delivering a first-class fan and game day experience here in Baltimore. And M&T Bank Stadium has been at the forefront of game day experiences and fan experiences as ranked, throughout its history. This investment allows us, we believe, to stay right at the front of the pack, despite the fact there's been other new builds. Part of that is because we have such an awesome fan base in the flock. But the other piece of that is because we put a lot of thought into the experience that every fan is going to have. So this plaza, the bump out on the north plaza above in the upper concourse, creation of new bathrooms. You guys get that question and comment a lot. I see them on some of your stories. Where are the bathrooms? When are they coming? They're coming. 33% increase in the bathrooms, but the Northwest Plaza building will bring live entertainment accessible to every fan that comes in. A ton of technology that we're investing in on the concourses, but also the plaza to modernize the stadium. And the nice thing, John, I think, is that we have a stadium that has the bones to be able to continue to invest, so we don't have to go to the state and contemplate $2-3 billion tear down and new build. So we're blessed that way, and we're grateful for it. The complex is rolling. Excited to see the O's roll out their first phase of renovations last week on opening day, and so we're really excited to deliver our stadium renovations here this summer, completed.
Another hot topic in the league is the possibility of going to 18 games. Where would the Ravens' stance be for that?
We'd leave that to the league and I think the union to negotiate. We're all watching it closely, and that's always going to have to be a negotiation and compromise that works for both sides. We have a ton of respect for where we think the players' interests are. I think collectively both sides see an opportunity, but we've got to work through what that's going to mean and how we make it work.
Another thing that could be changing on the league level is starting to see the talk about renegotiating the TV deals. That could obviously change the economics of the league and the game greatly. Are you starting to sort of put some variables into your future planning at an organizational level, or is it too soon for that?
Too soon for this for us at an organizational level. The league does a great job of two things. One, keeping us apprised of their plans and their work that they're putting in on the media side. Secondly, I give a lot of credit to Roger and his team. Hans, who's now running that group, is to stay on the front edge of the innovations, the technologies that need to happen. Our fan base has remained very strong. Where they find the games, or where we find them to deliver games to them, has been disrupted quite a bit. And I think when I first got here, you all were asking me questions about the Thursday night package on Prime, and some of those things have become normalized now. But the league has done a nice job of monitoring and structuring our media contracts, and are finding new partners in technology, streamers, to deliver our game to where our fans are. Particularly, I think, important for us as we try to find younger fans and how they consume our content and our live games.
Speaking of the league, I think it was a couple of years ago that you guys threw your hat in the ring, so to speak, for the draft in Baltimore. Where is that process at with you guys?
Yeah, we're still in active communication with the league. These are rolling processes where the league gets a chance to know the local market. We're very much working with our public civic partners, Visit Baltimore, the city of Baltimore, the state, but also in communication with the league. And I think we already have, and I think we're going to continue to have really strong prospects to bring the draft. But until that happens, we'll be working at it very hard.
And the idea would be to utilize the stadium or some portion of it in that.
That's TBD, but another good shot at trying to get me to roll out our plans before we get a chance to really finalize. But in all seriousness, I think there's a lot of assets in and around Baltimore that make it tremendously unique. The harbor, the development around. We have one of the most unique sports complexes with a baseball stadium and a football stadium that you can see each other, from our parking lots and from our upper decks, concourses. So there's a lot of opportunity for us to do some really creative things. And of course, the city has two beautiful, massive parks. You've seen those utilized different places. So there's a lot of opportunity, and we are exploring all of those potential sites.
Continuing the draft conversation, how much do you guys hope hosting the rugby match that you are will help you guys in these types of events?
I think it's a great opportunity for us to showcase, as was the Messi game, right, that the Mid-Atlantic, Baltimore in particular, Maryland, has a very, very strong appetite for all kinds of sport. Our team enjoys tremendous support from our fan base. They are also hungry for European football, soccer, global football, rugby, and other sports. I think we've talked about why are the stadium renovations important. There's a lot of reasons they're important. One of the reasons is we want the stadium, Steve's commitment to being downtown Baltimore, to drive more people, fan activity downtown Baltimore. And you all know we have 6 nights of events that are coming to M&T Bank outside of Ravens games this year. So that's incredibly important for us to deliver on that objective that we set with the state when we renovated. And I think the international match puts us on a global scale, a little bit like the AFC Championship did, where there's so many people around the world and around the country watching. South Africa, New Zealand, you can't find a more significant kind of international iconic matchup. So credit to our teams, Brad Down, Moon Javid, who went out and hunted that opportunity and brought it back to our stadium. Rich Tamayo, who's here as well, has done a tremendous job at attracting global international events at M&T Bank Stadium in Baltimore.
Sashi, have you guys decided on the ticket prices? Is there going to be an increase this year?
We have not decided on that yet, so we will announce that at the right time. Jeff, so sorry about that, but yeah.
Sashi, this offseason has been a lot for the organization overall. So
Yeah,
for
a lot
you
of change.
professionally and personally, what have you kind of learned about yourself and just dealing with the different change?
Yeah, it's been the first time we've had really significant change in almost 2 decades, right? And Steve talked about this. We committed to avoid being an organization that relies on change to get where we think there's a lot of value to finding good people, committing to them, pushing through adversity.
The first question I want to ask is, you guys released Tyler Beyond. Just kind of curious what went into that decision.
Yeah, those ones are hard, because also not just like from the football standpoint, I have a longer relationship with Tyler. It's coming, so I loved him setting some of the standards, in year one to get rolling. But at the end of it, sometimes you have to, pull different levers to make it all, come together. And so definitely a tough call. But when we felt, like, hey, this is the best call for us for the team.
And then, just overall, where do you feel the team is at after the first night of free agency?
I feel like this elevated group with a lot of versatility. I like the speed that we added to the team. And for me, I think, me well, like the thing I love the most is the competition that comes with putting a good group together. And so when you look at some of our positions, that is going to be a battle. And like the thing that comes from that is like where everyone, lifts up and goes. So having the new players in the building, we've had a lot of the current guys, so I get to see them on a pretty regular, but having the new guys in for their day when they signed I enjoyed that because after a tough end of season into January and February, to get some of these guys in here and see their enthusiasm of doing it all together, that was really cool. And some of them know each other from different teams, and so to see that connection, like I hadn't put the Amenahu and Tunsil connection together, and they like talk about like a hug and like excitement and like somebody that had mentored him and it meant a lot to him. Like those are things as a coach, like, and I know that one. you know they might have played on the same team, but you don't know like that's my dude. And so behind the scenes there was lots of this guy, like the connection of them to come. So to answer your question, like I'm super pumped. And then the guys come on the 20th. And then we kind of begin the phase with them all together. And then, as we go through the draft process, we did some meetings, and we'll do some more meetings when we get back. So it feels good after that, adding to the group. It kind of brought me just joy seeing all of them together, knowing like, all right, these players are a big part of what we're doing. And we tried to make it really clear how each of them would fit. New coordinators, how they would go, what that would look like. And so that was a big piece too with David and Durante and the assistants.
I don't know how deep you've gotten into the prospects, but when you look at this draft class and the receiver position specifically, what stands out about that?
Yeah, offensively we're further along than just in terms of the process to go. But what I think that I noticed, and this is true for a lot of times, man, there's a lot of different variety of players at the position in this draft. There's some slots that have absolute, change of direction, can work somebody inside, run option routes or a choice route to go. You see some guys who have some real size, and there's a couple of burners. And so you'll hear more people talk about he's an X. It's a player who plays oftentimes the backside of the formation, wants vertical routes to go. The slots and the Z receivers are oftentimes similar. They're in motion more, they're into traffic more, contested catches a little bit more. So I think for a team looking for one, that what are you looking for, and then how, well, it's not like this different rankings, but like where would you play the players? And I think that's a big deal because you don't want so many at one spot that you don't have the versatility to line into different roles. And so within receiver, that's like the next filter down. And so there's quite a few in this one, and in my head, that's usually how I break them from the X receivers and then the Z's and the slots.
And then back when the season first ended, Adam Peters made it pretty clear that edge rusher was going to be a priority, obviously.
Yeah, amen. He delivered.
Made a lot of moves there. Not just the addition that you made, but also Dorrance.
Yeah.
Coming back from this injury, how do you feel about that group overall?
Yeah, let's start with DA. I really thought he was like really, coming into his own, and so for him to have that setback was significant. The good news with him, like he's doing great, and so just he sent me a video of him just training the other day, and just like super pumped about where he's headed and why it's going, because he's a real factor in his versatility. You've seen him line up outside, inside, and so because of him, we're allowed to move other parts around as well. And so Charles is a player like that, where he can be outside all the way to inside, and so it leaves guys like Dafe and KC more outside first. So the best teams that I've been a part of had waves of players that could apply pressure, and we'll need to be able to do that, and we will.
Hey, Coach.
Morning, Dave.
I wanted to follow up on the wide receiver thing.
Sure.
I think like the outside conversation on like wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, I think
Yes.
it's become more of an outside conversation internally, almost like positionless basketball.
Yes.
Is that accurate? And if so, like how important is it for you to not just identify how they could be used as a Z, but if you have a receiver who comes in that obvious fit, could potentially develop into an X or a slot?
Yeah, I think last year there was a lot of reporters that were saying who's 1 and 2, and so not last year, 24. But I think what we learned is it's not necessarily 1 and 2 in that space, but if somebody has the unique things, where can they go? Now, in an ideal world, it's like 2 1s, 2 people that are going, and we've got plenty of examples of that in our league. And when you have that, maybe you don't do it as much by committee of this type of route, this type of thing. So if you have it where they can do multiple things, it makes it a little easier. You almost can play left and right when you want to. But if you don't, you've got to be a little more creative about where you put people, how do they go there. And so if you can find players and train them to have the different types of versatility, I think that makes a big deal. As far as our spot, like there's going to be competition, at the Z and at the slot to go. Jeremy and Luke are certainly ones, Jaden and Luke inside, or certainly Jalen and Luke are ones inside, and slots, and Trey and others outside. So once we get all the pieces here, then I think we can start moving around a little bit. And in the camp, I think it's important to conceptually teach. Everybody runs this route, okay? Dave does it better than Dan, and let's put it into that spot, as opposed to he only runs these, he only runs those. I think you have to explore a little bit and find those out. And once you do, then you have a good sense for it. For the players that are coming from free agency, those evaluations are a little bit easier because it's demonstrated against other NFL players. The college system, you don't know whether exactly they're doing and how they're being featured in that spot, but you look for the traits. It's okay, in our system, this is the things that we'll ask them to do. So I think it can still be 1-2, like in the broader sense, but it can also be combinations, and like the sum is greater than an individual part.
And then conceptually, as much as you can share, the presence of Chigakonkwo, John Bates, Benson, and even Colson Yankoff in that room. How do you kind of see that dynamic playing off each other?
Yeah, let's probably first start with like Chig and the addition to him to go. And so I love the speed, first and foremost, because some people have time speed and then demonstrated game speed, and I felt that with Chig. And so you see it on deep over routes and ones that build up speed on a play action game. Ben's strength, I really feel like it's still him in the move, in the backfield, from the line of scrimmage, off the line, and he can really run and get to the edge. John obviously is one of the best inline guys we go, and Yankoff is somebody that we felt like has really worked hard in dual role, and so I'm looking forward to see what Yank can do, because he's a guy that's there. And the other player that we haven't talked about, but all of us have high hopes for, is Cager. He's got uniqueness to him, man. And so if there's one player, he said, Dan, who are you really looking to see what's going to take place in the spring and in this training camp? I see this guy putting in an incredible amount of work right now. And I'm interested to see where that goes with Cager. I think there's a real value there for third down, and it's one of Zach's superpowers. And so when that didn't take place, that's a harder person to replace, knows when to sit down, when to go. And so Cager's also one that we don't talk about a lot outside the building, but I thought it's worthy of bringing him up.
Regarding the running back room, you added a couple guys.
We did.
Who's Chris? What do you think that room, how do you like that room right now?
Yeah, and for Chris, what a great teammate he has been here. So he's the type of player that helped the locker room really go strong, so we're pumped for him. Adding Jerome into the mix of what goes going against with White, he's a fantastic pass catcher coming out of the backfield. Like the screen game, the ability to create when he gets outside, and I thought he was always so smooth, when you saw him get out to the edges. So for him to have a chance to come and be a part of it, that excited me. Anthony Lynn was one that really had been on forward, had watched it, and I trust Anthony's opinions on all things running back and lots of other stuff, but that one for sure. So I'm excited to see where they go. Jeremy to come back was good for us. He's about as good a teammate as I've coached, the way he uplifts and helps others. And for those of you who've been around J-Mac, he's a pro's pro. And so adding to a room, when I was talking earlier about what I'm looking for in competition, I think running back's one of those rooms, tight end's one of those rooms, DN's is one of those rooms where man, we're talking really pushing one another to see where it can get to. And my experience has been when you do that, man, it just rises and it gets elevated, and I expect that to be the case on the three positions that I said for sure.
You were talking about tight ends. They've always talked very highly of David Rye. He gets a promotion this year. How ready is he for the next step?
Yeah, he is ready, and all of us needed that shot at one time, for somebody to have the belief in us to go, and my belief in him has always been that strong. I had a great sense when we got him here. He was just done playing. I said, it took a little bit of a leap of faith to come here for him. He had some other chances too to say, we're going to develop you. as a coach, and what would that look like, and calling some plays at practice. And so he did some of that in 2 minutes today, and so it wasn't just with him, but with others as well. And his mind was ready to go into that space, knowing what we needed as a team at this time too. And so he's attacked the offseason, the staff, collaboration, connection has been what I'd hoped it would be in a short time so far. They're almost all the way done from the teaching phase of getting all the material in. When you think of like a professor teaching a class for a semester, you're like, what's everything I need to get all of this done, and when does it all go in? Because you want to put as much of the system in as you can during the spring, so when we come to training camp, we can throw the most competitive camp we've had in our 3 years together. And so the better you train them in that space, the less teaching of it that you're doing in camp. Obviously, like, teaching's our job, but like, we can get the players a step ahead going into camp, then that'll be a big deal. And David and the staff on offense and Durante, they've worked really hard at that so far.
Hey, Coach.
Good morning.
So with Dietrich Wise, you only got to see him, of course, a lot of them in training camp, and then a
Yes.
game and a half, and he got injured. You all decided to bring him back.
Yep.
So what went into the decision, which you all, the impact that he brought?
Yeah, he's a really remarkable teammate. I felt his strength right from the very beginning, and I was referring to another player earlier about free agency, and you'd seen him do things over and over, how strong and tough he is. And so once we got to training camp, okay, that changed. Like, there's lots of players that look nice in shorts, and then you put the pads on, and it looks different. He's the other way. Okay, in training camp. And so he played in our opening game against the Giants. He really had some good plays down the line, coming on screen, played it tough. And so when he got hurt early in Green Bay, that was a real blow to us. His presence, went back, got the surgery in Dallas and did some work there, but he also came back to be around the players to do some of the rehab here. That told me a lot about the man, about who he was. It would have been very easy, family was there to do that, but just wanted to come outside and be around it. And so I think that type of work ethic, you don't ever go wrong on that, Candy. And so let's find out where it can go. I think it'll still be time before we know, where he's at in terms of the recovery. But that's one that's worth taking the shot on, because he's one of those people, and I would not bet against him. And if there was things were going bad in a dark alley, like, hey, Wise, I know he'd be right there, and I'd want him right there.
And this is a philosophy question just around best player available versus like best player available on your board. Is there a difference there?
I think there is, because best player on your board is the most important, because that's what's the best for your team. And so if we went around to the 32 teams and everybody shared their board, they would all be different. And so I think it's super important to say, this is what your team and all the work that the scouts have put in to organize that. So that's one for Adam, but I'm pretty sure he'd say you trust your board, because he does. And I think that's what allows you in that space not to be emotional and going. It's, like I say, similar to a coach in a big part of the play. Let's try this play. Like, no, we're going to do the one that we practiced like 50 times this week. And when you do that, I think you have better chances of like getting it just right.
I couldn't quite hear if you answered it when Nikki asked, but with Tyler, did you guys explore a trade with him at all? And then were you surprised?
We did not explore a trade. I wasn't surprised that he had gotten signed. I'm glad that he did. I know Mike, who's the new OC there, and so he was pumped to get him there. And we talked, like, I know a little bit from Mike about the scheme-wise, what they would do, and I certainly thought Tyler would be a fit there with them. But I wasn't surprised. He's tough, he's durable, he's smart. So I wasn't surprised, in that space.
So by not exploring a trade, we just kind of try to do best by Tyler and give him an
Yeah, hit AP up on that one more. He'd be better getting you up on that. But for sure, the competition at the spot is by no means, cemented or, finalized in that one.
Sorry, I didn't know there was a flow.
Yeah, there's a flow, Cincinnati. No, you're fine. Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask you about Jonathan Allen and the impact he had for you and in the locker room. The Bengals just signed him this offseason.
Yeah, so I think what Cincinnati's going to get is somebody that's super durable as a ball player, super consistent in what they're going to do. And so when you have a player like that and you add them to the group, that can mean a lot for your entire team.
Coach, specific to the replacement ref situation that's kind of looming around here, is there any, speaking to the organization as a whole, is there any concern about that potentially going forward, and does that have any change in how you prepare for the season particularly?
It is an awesome question for you to bring up later on today. And it's a really big topic that's going around here from the coaching side. Like other people are, going to affect that, and in fact they'll be speaking of that today. But yeah, it's a really big topic and one that deserves the conversation for sure.
100%. And if it came down to it, because I know the league is hiring replacement refs at this stage, importantly, would you rather they come down to the season being delayed, or would you rather, as a coach, go forward with replacement referees and start that season?
I'm going to go back to answer number one on that one. It'd be best to come back and hit that one up later on today for the people that can give you a good, accurate answer onto that one.
Gotcha. Thank you, Coach.
You're very welcome.
Not looking for scheme secrets or anything like that, but in trying to figure out like what you guys are going to look like on defense, the idea of like who's the Mike linebacker or who's going to have the green dot, that seems to me changes depending on like is to look more of like a 4-3 or a 3-4 because you have different people. Have you determined what your plan is to do that, and then how does it kind of filter out from there?
Yeah, so the question was regarding like a green dot and what that goes. And so in this instance, we'll have a number of different packages, Ben. It will be, I can explain this best way, who has probably the most on-field in all the packages would be the one that would do that. I've done it with safeties before, and so it's really, the green dot is the initial part of the communication hub. That doesn't mean they're making all the calls and the checks. So in other words, Ben, you could have the, theoretically at safety and give it to me as the linebacker, and I'm doing all the communication, because I may not be in on every package. So in practice, we get a number of people that can work through that communication, but it doesn't have to be one specific position. It usually falls into a good communicator and one that is involved in the most packages. So for us, Luvu is somebody that I would also consider into that space. He'll still likely play our will linebacker, which is one of our inside guys, which are similar, but he could be the one to go do that. That doesn't mean he would have the most at the line communication, but it does mean you do have to have a few people trained for that.
And with regards to the...
and I'll go back one. I think two communication hubs are really needed. It's one in the front seven and one in the secondary. So whether we have the green dot or not, who's in and out of checks, how do they get there, but one in the front seven, one in the back seven, and then one of those positions will have the green dot.
And you guys obviously brought in Tim Settle. How much of that